Hello, my name is Dr. Laura Davis, and this is a short video lecture on Margaret Atwood's novel The Testaments, chapters 51 to 60. So, chapter 51, this section of the novel, begins with Agnes receiving some top secret files periodically, and these files get revealed to her about the crimes and systematic problems in Gilead. So at this point in the novel, we don't know who is providing her with this information, but Agnes is receiving these files. They're noted that they're top secret, and as she reads through them, she can see the information is that there have been all of these crimes with regard to Gilead, a lot of kind of ugly things going on with regard to all the things we already know about Gilead. And gradually she will get to know some information about her own birth mother, who is a handmaid. So the question that kind of we have as readers, and also that Agnes has, we're kind of aligned with Agnes in this sense, is why is she getting these mysterious files put into her room for her to read and then kind of taken away? It's like somebody is giving her this information. So gradually, Agnes, through this, in part through this, is kind of coming through to an awakening. So I just want to kind of draw your attention to the fact that like all the way through the novel, we've had these parallels between Agnes and Daisy / Jane / baby Nicole, right? They are both kind of around the same age. I think Agnes is a little bit older, but they're teenagers, they're coming of age, and they're moving from kind of childhood innocence into adulthood knowledge and awareness and experience. And I think this kind of receiving of files that Agnes is getting is part of that gradual awakening, gradual awareness. Earlier I referred to various references to fairy tales in this novel, and one of them was Sleeping Beauty. And of course, Sleeping Beauty awakes at some point, right? But as I've said before, Atwood reverses the fairy tale so that it's much more about the woman's agency rather than the woman always, waking up and marrying the prince. She is truly waking up in order to take action in this novel. And that is true both for Daisy and for Agnes. So here we are getting this gradual knowledge with Agnes. And I will say that there's kind of a couple of ways that she's coming to this awareness and this kind of waking up, if we want to go along with that Sleeping Beauty illusion. One, and I talked about this in my notes in the previous section of chapters, is through reading. So when she comes to Ardua Hall and she begins to be able to read, she starts to come to an awareness. And I think that Margaret Atwood is really doing some interesting things with thematizing reading and writing and how they can be a means to power and to agency and to action. So first she starts to come to this awareness through reading, and we've seen that in the previous section where Becca warns her, right? Well, when you get to read the Bible yourself, when you learn how to read, you'll see that what we've been told is an interpretation of it. It's not necessarily right. And she comes to understand, with the tale of the concubine in 12 pieces, what they were told and what the real story is and how there's a difference there. And this is a real awakening for her, right? It's a real kind of coming into a knowledge. And it is one that she does through a taking of action, through being empowered through reading and writing and interpretation and education in a wider sense. So she's getting these files. Now we soon find out, it's not revealed right away, but we soon find out that Aunt Lydia is the one placing the files. Now, the development of Aunt Lydia is quite interesting here. We, at this point, as readers, are sympathetic to Lydia despite the fact that she is part of the repressive regime of Gilead. We have already, by this point in the novel, had a window into her past and how she came to be part of that regime, what she suffered. And we have seen her kindnesses as well as her having to buy into a system that oppresses others, so her oppression of others, as well as her kindnesses to those who have been oppressed. We have seen that she's been able to remove Becca and Agnes from their plight to marry people who would be obviously lead to their own oppression and downfall. It was already there, but would be even worse. She kind of saves them from that in a sense. So we're already seeing some of the, if you want to go as far to say, kind of hero-like qualities of Lydia, right? And so we do find out that Lydia is the one placing these. And so part of us is still wondering why she's doing this. And we're, I think, starting to get a sense that it's going to have something to do with Daisy's story, and that Aunt Lydia might be this mysterious source that Daisy and Ada and Elia have been referring to through Daisy's story on the other side of things in Canada, right? So there's parallels all the way through the novel in terms of Agnes's story and Daisy's story, right? So they're both kind of coming of age stories in a sense. There's been parallels between these stories all the way through the text. And here we have a parallel too, in a sense. They're going through similar things. On the one hand, Daisy is being prepared by Garth, by Elia, by Ada to go to Gilead. She's being prepared for that quest and that journey. She's being prepared physically with Garth training her. She's being prepared mentally through Elia and Ada. So she's getting this kind of training and preparation to go on her important journey, which is a physical, geographical journey across the border, across borders, right? And is also a coming of age journey and a journey within the self. And finally, it's not just the self, but has to do with a journey of a nation and a community. So it's kind of a journey on a number of levels, both physical, like a physical, geographical journey, and kind of a more metaphorical time journey. So we have that. And then on the other hand, Agnes is being prepared for the same thing. And it's Lydia who's preparing her. So whereas we have Garth and Ada preparing Daisy for her journey, we have Lydia preparing Agnes for hers. Now, this isn't really explicit because Agnes doesn't know that she's going to be going on any journey, but she is certainly seeing some changes around Ardua Hall, the least of which are the files that she's getting and the knowledge that she's coming to. This is a kind of preparation for her journey, as we will soon find out, or her quest. So at this point, it really starts to become a quest narrative. And we start to realize that there's going to be a forthcoming journey, and there's going to be a quest. And we kind of know what the quest is, right? The quest is to take down Gilead because it is so oppressive, and so it is oppressive for everyone, men and women, but especially for women, and it is violent. It's a violent regime. So we need to, the quest is to kind of take down this regime so that we can have justice and we can have freedom and liberty for men and women and everybody. So this is the quest. Of course, there's also this kind of implicit quest for the self, as there is in any coming of age novel. And as I said, here we have two coming of age stories that are parallel, Daisy's and Agnes's. So it is as much a kind of quest to change the society in which they live for the better, and it is a quest to understand themselves, and that quest to understand themselves also has to do with a quest to understand their origins. In other words, their mother, right? Their mothers. You get the sense of a quest home, a quest to understand the self is also a quest to find the mother. So all of these kind of, this is a quest that brings together all of those things. I wanted to mention the key, the notion of the key. It's mentioned a few times in the text early on. Remember that Tabitha tells Agnes, this is very early on in the text, that the wedding ring was like a key. It opened the door to the children, and then she chose Agnes. It is, in a sense, in Gilead, a wedding ring is a key to have a child. If you have married a commander, you will get a child. But later in this section, or it might even be a little bit before this section, Agnes is talking about being able for the first time to go into the Ardua Hall library, and she said it was like having a golden key, right? Again, a kind of a fairy tale like image, but it's a key to knowledge. It's not a key to motherhood in this sense, it's a key to knowledge. And talking about fairy tale allusions, I would like to suggest that there's an allusion to the Snow Queen as well. It's pretty subtle, but I think it's there. And it's the moment when Agnes says that her and Becca have been at Ardua Hall for 9 years, and they've grown up from when they were 14 onward. But she said, and it's been in a sense a monotonous, but yet in some ways peaceful 9 years. Now we know that Ardua Hall has lots of problems and it's not peaceful, and people get corrections and they're sent to the cellar, and there's lies and other things. So it is not an idealistic place by any means. I don't think Atwood meant it to be. But they have nevertheless had this kind of sheltered, let's put it that way, sheltered life in Ardua Hall for 9 years. And Agnes says, in a way, we hadn't grown up. It was like we were in ice. We were frozen in ice. And you get the sense now that now is going to be the time of the melting, right? They're going to come out. They're going to break free of that ice. They're not going to be stagnant anymore. They're going to wake up like Sleeping Beauty wakes up. And if you're not familiar with Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen, the Disney movie Frozen was based on it. Now, Disney always departs from the earlier versions of fairy tales, so it's quite different, but you get the sense of what I mean, of it's a coming of age, the ice melts, and there is a movement and action, and that happens if you're familiar with the Disney movie in that too. So we're on the edge of moving into adulthood, of coming into experience and knowledge, and that ice is going to melt and they're going to break free of it. I want to mention as well the repetition that comes in this section of the prayer that was mentioned again way at the beginning of the text with Tabitha and Agnes, the one that is that starts, "Now I lay me down to sleep, I pray to God my soul to keep." And there's a reference there to angels, that angels would take the soul if the child died in their sleep. And when Agnes originally kind of meditates or contemplates this lullaby, I guess you could call it, prayer that her mother teaches to her, that Tabitha teaches to her when she's young, she says, well, I don't want the angels of Gilead coming to take my soul, because we know the angels are like those the guardians, the men, the bodyguards kind of, and so that's what she's thinking of as angels. But I think now, and this hymn is repeated, I keep calling it a hymn and other things, this prayer, this lullaby, whatever it is repeated in this section of the text. And I think that we, the readers, can be invited to see, like there's these 3 girls right now. There's Becca, Agnes, and Daisy. So it's Daisy and Agnes who are the 2 of the 3 narrators of the text. But now we have kind of a third, and she's not one of the protagonists, but she's kind of a third sister in a sense. Not a real sister, but a third kind of a sister. She's called a sister, and that's Becca. So we have 3 of them, and I think in any one of their cases, we could see the other 2 as angels. The 3 of them are needed for this quest. And for each individual one, like for Daisy, it's the other 2 that function as angels for her, right? For Agnes, it's Becca and Daisy that function as angels in a sense. So this idea that there's angels who help take you on a quest, I think is implied. So we are left with these 3, actually Becca, I think we know this at the end of chapter, what am I up to here? We're going to 60. I think we know at this point that Becca will be staying behind because there's an urgency. Judd has become aware of some things. Lydia's had to speed this journey up and send Daisy and Agnes on their way earlier than she thought. So she can't send them on a plane. She's got to quickly devise another plan for them, and Becca has to stay back. So that's kind of where we leave off, and we're about to see Daisy and Daisy/Jade/Baby Nicole, whatever you want to call her, and Agnes go on their journey back across the border to Canada. And for Agnes, this will be her first time there. Okay, thank you very much for listening.